So our first article here on Weekly News Roundup, we're going to be talking about, is this dystopian phone rule coming to a phone near you? Oh boy, this is going to be quite fun here. Of course, you can catch the whole stream in the link down below, but this little section here, we want to go on over to India. And before I talk about this, I do want to mention there were a couple of different dystopian Indian things come out. So TechLore, of course, did a video this morning, I think, and which basically said, yeah, after social pressure, India backtracked on something. That's not the dystopian rule we're talking about. The one they backtracked on so far was a rule that required all phones in India to have an app installed on the phone. So iPhones, Android phones, any phone sold within India, any phone used within India had to have the app automatically pushed and automatically installed on the phone, and that app required basically permissions for the government to see absolutely everything. So that caused quite a bit of nonsense, but after enough social pressure in the whole world looking at them going, have you gone mad? They did backtrack on that. We're not talking about that rule. I just want to be clear because I'm going to see some moron in the comments that says, no, India backtracked on this rule, and they didn't even watch the video. We see it all the time. It's kind of fun. What we are going to be talking about, though, is this fun one here. India is now mandating that all new SIM cards are linked to an individual, two different things here. Wow. First, all messaging apps are linked to a SIM card. Okay. So Telegram, Signal, any form of maybe RCS messaging, maybe your iMessages, every single messaging application, WhatsApp, every one of them is tied to a SIM card. And so India's Department of Telecommunications now requires providers of messenger apps to work only with active SIM cards linked to a user's number to prevent fraud and misuse. So you can no longer use any of those messaging apps without an active SIM card being done. So the apps must stop working if the active SIM card is removed, and the desktop applications have to have a fairly short logout period, like in the matter of hours. So every couple hours, you'd have to log back into your desktop. Of course, this happens because India is known for its massive amount of scams, particularly dealing with messaging apps and things like that. And so the government hopes that this will stop all of the fraud coming out of India, which is quite dystopian. So the Indian government now requires messaging apps such as WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, Snapchat, and others that rely on Indian mobile numbers to use their identifiers to comply with new SIM binding rules within 90 days. Long-lived web/desktop sessions let fraudsters control victims' accounts from distant locations without needing the original device or SIM. So what they're getting at here is if they manage to fish their way into your account, they steal a session token like we're talking about in the password and passkey section on a later article section on this news program. If they're able to get into those sessions, they can keep using it the way it currently is. So under India's new rules, they're going to stop the messaging apps on phones will stop working once a SIM is taken out of the phone, and anything on desktops will automatically log out after a fairly short period of time, meaning that people and scammers in India can no longer fish you for your accounts and then get in and keep those accounts going and continue to scam people with your stolen credentials, because that's really what they're doing. They're kind of stealing your credentials. And so that is a mandatory thing. You might say, well, that sounds pretty bad, but at least we can always go to like Mint Mobile, tlm.li/mm, and just get myself some cards. But the problem is in India, in a rule earlier this February 2025, you now have to tie every SIM card in the country must be biometrically tied to your person. So talk about dystopian craziness, right? So if you're planning to get a new SIM card, you must follow the latest government rules to avoid rejection. Prime Minister's office has made Aadhaar-based biometric verification a mandatory for all new SIM connections to prevent fraud and cybercrime. Telecom retailers can no longer issue SIM cards without verifying a customer's identity through Aadhaar. Also, new regulations will track the number of SIMs registered under one person's name and require a photo taken from 10 different angles. How do you get 10 different angles of this? Of course, a later article in the news, there is some discussion about the toilet cameras. Maybe one of these angles is taking a picture of your anal print, I guess. I don't know. But 10 different angles. This was initiated to stop the misuse of fake SIM cards, oftentimes used in scams. And so here we have a country which is forcing biometric verification to issue a SIM card and then requiring a SIM card for all messaging communications. Well, what did India just do? Well, they just added in the best know your customer laws in the history of the planet. And you better believe it, the governments are going to look at this and start salivating. Like, this is so amazing. Of course, one of the challenges is when you happen to have these apps like WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram and you're forcing them to be tied to a phone number. Well, those phone numbers are not always secure, as WhatsApp discovered. Researchers say they were able to identify 3.5 billion WhatsApp accounts thanks to flaws in the software. So if you're going to send a message, you have to first check to see, basically you have to check with an API service to check if the number is actually registered with WhatsApp. Well, it turns out that API service, at least at the time they did this test, was not actually secured in any way, shape, or form. And so these researchers were able to ping that API, and they were actually able to, without any rate limiting, they sent 7,000 queries per second from a single source IP address. The volume of traffic should raise the eyebrows of any decent IT administrator, yet WhatsApp did not block the IP or the test accounts, and the researchers say they experienced no effective rate limiting. So at this time, the researchers found that 7,000 queries per second with no rate limiting was able to be pinged across that API service, and they were able to find 3.5 billion active WhatsApp accounts directly tied to phone numbers, and oftentimes get meta information, some of which contained actual real identifying information about those people based on what you put in your WhatsApp profile. And so what India is trying to do here is put together this weird, crazy surveillance state that allows you to basically tie everything to an individual identity, to an individual number, so the messaging apps then get effectively blocked out. Now, they have very laudable goals. Lots and lots and lots and lots of scams come from India. That is true. Maybe we need to have some form of global laws allowing cross-country jurisdictions, so when an Indian scam center is targeting grandma, maybe they should allow the FBI to bust in on the Indian scam centers. That way, maybe some of the crime might stop, but even then, because, I mean, how many times do you get a lot of these calls from people and they're basically just scammers, and but they're just offshore out of the United States jurisdiction. So it doesn't work to put your number on the do not call list. That doesn't work because they don't care. They're calling from Singapore. They're calling from India. They're calling from the Caribbean islands. They're calling from everywhere that they can possibly call. Now, India is trying to close this, but the problem is criminals do criminal things, and they're going to be able to source their own SIM card farms. They're going to continue to do this. All you're going to do is stop the individual people. But then we got to thinking, isn't this kind of what Microsoft is trying to do? They're trying to tie all communications biometrically to a person. This is what Microsoft is trying to do with Windows 11. We're going to force you on an internet connection. We're going to force you on a Microsoft account. We're going to highly, 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 highly strongly recommend that you utilize this service with Windows Hello. Now, there is a difference in that Windows Hello, allegedly, the biometric information does not leave your computer, whereas in India, it actually has to be biometrically verified through the government's biometric system. But still, Microsoft is able, with tying to phone numbers, tying to other pieces of information about you, Microsoft is able to authenticate every single user using every single computer if everybody is using Windows 11 the way they want. And that is very much like what India is attempting to do. And it begs this question, are we actually going to see a situation here where other governments start paying attention to what India is doing here and going, this sounds like a great way to stop scammers and stuff. And basically all they do is they produce a giant dragnet inside of the the government here, which is a fundamental problem. But is that not something that every country in here would salivate over doing right now? So let me know your thoughts about that. Again, the whole stream that we did here is available in the link down below, so you can have a look at that. And I hope you enjoy switching to Linux.